my God. Anyone who sees me riding this thing right now probably thinks I've never stepped foot on a skateboard in my life. What's going on, everyone? Back with another episode of Stuff and Things. Today we're taking a look at the KingKong board. I opened this in a mail time video a couple weeks ago. If you want to check out that video, I'll leave a link for it right up here in the corner. When I opened this thing initially, I gave my first impressions of it. I was kind of skeptical because I really knew nothing about it other than what was on the box and what came inside the box. Since then, just earlier this week, this board was officially launched on Kickstarter. I found the Kickstarter, a little bit more about where the board is coming from, different specs. So I'm going to go through what they have written here, and then we'll go outside and actually ride this thing, put it to the test. The Kickstarter campaign is titled KingKong Pro Carbon Fiber Dual Motor Electric Skateboard. Introducing KingKong Pro, the most affordable carbon fiber wrapped electric skateboard with dual motor drive. This board is very obviously not wrapped in carbon fiber. I'm not sure where that is coming from, but let's just keep on going. This is being created by a company called iFasten, by the way. They advertise 22 miles per hour max speed, 12.5 mile range, a 25% incline climb, as well as dual motors, which this one obviously has. The KingKong Pro has a built-in battery of 4,300 milliamp hours, but only a weight of 6.95 kilos. Only a weight of over 15 pounds. This thing is small, but it is not very light. With the dual motor drive system, climbing won't be an issue anymore. It can climb hills up to a 25% incline. To make it as light and stylish as possible, we used aeroplastic alloy to make the body and carbon fiber to wrap the whole skateboard. So I'm assuming this is the plastic alloy that they claim, but it's not wrapped in carbon fiber. To be honest, I don't think wrapping this thing in carbon fiber is really gonna do anything anyway. Supposedly there are two ways you can control the board with the controller that they included, but also an app on your smartphone. I'm not even gonna deal with that because I don't trust controlling a skateboard like this with a smartphone app. It just doesn't seem like the smartest thing to me. They advertised 3 different riding modes, however this one only really showed 2 in the instruction manual that it came with. It's got safety lights, LEDs in the front and back. That's kind of cool, I guess. I don't have a board with integrated lights already. USB on the bottom here, they show that you can charge your phone and also the controller using the actual board battery. Water resistance, IP65 waterproof. I don't like using the term waterproof when it comes to boards like this unless someone comes out with a skateboard that I can throw into a pool, pull out, and start riding it again. So I'm gonna say water resistant. I should be able to ride this thing through puddles, maybe in rain. They also have a bag and some different backer options on Kickstarter. This board would be their $3.99 pledge, which is pretty cheap. However, if it doesn't perform and it's not good, then I mean, what's the point? Retail, this board is gonna be going up for $499, I guess, once it's in full production. There are also a couple different options on their campaign. I will obviously leave a link to that in the description down below if you want to check it out for yourself. And according to their timeline, they are supposed to start shipping around the June mark. Now this thing has obviously got me skeptical for a few reasons there. You should really go back and check out the video of when I first opened this thing. That was the most realistic, raw first impression that I could have given of this board. I already ran into an issue with it in that video. I turned the thing on and I was listening to the motors. The motors sound pretty cool. Just as a first impression, that probably seems like the most solid part of this board. After I was done checking the thing out, I tried to turn the board off and it just wouldn't turn off for some reason. I ended up just setting it over in a corner and then I left the apartment, came back maybe an hour later, and it was turned off. But regardless, I charged this thing all the way up. It looks like the controller is also done charging, so let me go outside and hopefully not die while riding this thing. All right, we're out here, South Beach, Miami, in the middle of spring break, so riding this thing around the streets might get a little sketchy at times, but turn the board on with the bottom button here, turn the remote controller on with the button on the front of it. There's a couple lights on the controller. The green light on the top there is indicating that it is in the beginner mode. Slow mode might be 10 miles an hour, so let's try it out. This board is deceptively small, comparable to the Lou board, but the wheelbase is a lot shorter. I think the overall board length is longer because of this kicktail here, but it's a little bit awkward and I feel like I'm gonna be stepping on the back too much and I'm gonna fall off the thing. So here's the initial test in slow mode. You just rock up on the switch like most e-boards. See if it moves. It's trying. hold up a second. It's kind of hard to tell other than me like rocking back and forth, but the power is like inconsistent. It'll like go and then slow down and go and then slow down again. The only way that I actually feel stable is if I stand on the nose and the tail, actually like past where the trucks are mounted up. The trucks feel good. I mean, it turns pretty smoothly, but the weird like power thing that it's doing, it's just, I don't know, it's kind of weird. Coming up to a stop sign, let's see how it brakes. All right, the brakes work. I'm not sure how much I can trust them yet with the weird like power fluctuations, but let's keep on going. Man, this thing really struggles. If you don't push off, it's barely moving me right now. I only weigh like 170 pounds. All right, that was just slow mode. Now I have to bump it up to the only other mode that I could actually find on this thing. They advertised 3, but I can only get to 2. The only way that I found to do that is by clicking this button, but that's actually not doing anything. I guess if you just click it once, it reverses a direction. One click, and forward brings it back in reverse now. So the only way I can actually switch the mode is if I turn the controller off completely, press and hold the button. Now press and hold the button again to turn it back on, and as soon as it turns on, click the button again. Now it's on a red light there, meaning it's on the fast mode. I think I want to test this first without actually standing on the board, so let's see if it like fluctuates in speed at all. Oh! That did not stop for some reason. I was even pulling on the brake. The hell? That is definitely something I want to keep in mind when testing this speed, so let's see how it goes. Alright, there's definitely a lot more power, but I still think it's giving me that like jerky type of motion. Brakes. It's such a weird feeling. It's also doing this weird thing, it like goes in reverse before it goes forward. I don't know, man. So the wheels should be spinning clockwise as I accelerate, but I don't know if you can tell that they move in the opposite direction before it moves. It's like a real faint hiccup before it goes. It might be kind of hard to see, but you can definitely feel it when you're standing on the board. Try this again, hope I don't die. Oh my gosh. Dude, it's so jerky. I've never ridden a board like this. This is the first board that I've ridden that I'm actually afraid to go full speed with. This is dangerous to say the least, but I'm still gonna turn on the tracks and see how fast I can get this thing to go and maybe see the range on it, but I don't think I'm gonna be riding this thing 12 miles. Oh my God. Anyone who sees me riding this thing right now probably thinks I've never stepped foot on a skateboard in my life. This actually makes me feel like I've never stepped foot on a skateboard in my life. This is where I get a little nervous. Can you tell it's spring break? It's time for the brick test. That's actually not too bad. All right, first first 2.86 miles. I'm gonna start off with the controller because, to be honest, that's like the best part of it as of right now. It's a pretty simple design, all plastic. The actual control of the Switch does feel pretty good, other than the whole weird throttle curve type of thing that it's doing. When you pull it full lock in either direction, there's plastic covering the whole thing, whereas like on the Lu controller, that thing felt much cheaper than this. However, it performed a little bit better, and when you go full lock in either direction, you can actually see directly down into the controller. The mode selection, still kind of hard to figure out. It says one thing in the instruction manual that this came with and says something else on their Kickstarter campaign. I'm not exactly sure what the bottom 3 lights mean. I'm assuming that's battery power of the board, but we'll find out if this thing dies while I'm still out here. There was no lanyard included with this, however it does have the hole here to stick your finger through. Not a huge problem to me. I typically don't use a lanyard every time I'm out riding anyway. If I'm ever hopping off my board, I'll throw it in my pocket, so that's exactly what I've been doing with this one. Now for the actual board itself, as you can see, it's a little wet and dirty. I rode through a couple puddles there and it didn't turn off or blow up on me, so that's a plus. The trucks do feel really good. The motors seem pretty damn powerful. Riding on the bricks on other boards was definitely not comfortable, especially the Lu board. Although this thing is super rigid, I guess it's the wheels and the big battery pack in the middle, it was actually pretty damn smooth. That's probably the steepest hill you can find in Miami Beach. I ride up that thing all the time whenever I'm testing boards out, and it made it up there no problem at all. So I would say that part of the specs line up with how this thing actually performs. But then there's the actual connection between the mode, or the way the motors are controlled or something. It's just not confidence inspiring. It's just super sketchy. I mean, I've been riding skateboards my whole life, and when I'm on this thing, it's just constantly jerking around. You have to constantly switch your weight from the front foot to your back foot. Because the wheelbase is so short, you kind of have to stand on the nose and tail. And then if it brakes unexpectedly, you kind of go rocking forward, and the same if it accelerates too quick, you go rocking back. Whatever controller in this board is also doing the same thing that the Lu did, where if you're rocking full force, full throttle all the way up, and then you let go, the board continues to accelerate a little bit after you let off the throttle. Same thing with the braking. It's just a really weird feeling, and because of that, it would not be good for someone who is not familiar with electric boards to just hop on this thing and go. Even in the beginner mode, you feel all of those things, but then when you bump it up to the fast mode, it just amplifies everything times 10. As I'm holding the board like this, I can still hear that noise. I don't know if you guys can hear this. Making funny noises, the controller's making funny noises. I'm just not sure. I think I'm gonna complete my typical loop around South Beach and then head back to the apartment and give my final thoughts on this thing. This is top speed right now and it's super sketchy. And that's how long it takes to slow down. What that means, but we're on the last little red LED on the bottom, so I'm assuming either the remote or board is almost dead. The super laggy power is still there though, so I'm not sure what's going on. Alright guys, back for my final impressions, final thoughts on the iFasten KingKong board. Where do I begin on this one? It says I went a distance of 4.23, but I probably went more like 5.5 because in the middle there I forgot to turn my app back on. Max speed says 36 miles per hour. That's obviously wrong. That must have happened when I turned the app back on and I wasn't at the location that I was at, so it just jumped right to where I was at the time. When I checked the app halfway through the ride, it said that I went about 16 miles an hour, and I did max it out like 4 or 5 times there, and it's definitely sketchy when you're going that fast, but I definitely don't think this thing actually hit 22 miles per hour. So for some of the pros, I'm gonna dig a little bit on this. The controller, I actually don't mind. This thing feels pretty good in the hand. No lanyard, but like I said, you're obviously not gonna lose a grip on it if you have your finger through this hole. The actual throw, if you wanna call it that, of the stick is very short, but It's springy, it feels good. I think this does feel a little bit better than the Lou board controller. Just because the controller feels good though, doesn't mean the board rides that well. I don't know if it's a communication error between the controller and the board, or the motherboard sending the power to the motors, but it's just super jerky. By the end of the ride there, I found that the only way that I could consistently ride this thing and feel somewhat safe is if I'm going full throttle or no throttle at all. Especially in the fast mode, if you're going like halfway to full, it almost accelerates up to that speed and then brakes. And then when it brakes, you kind of let off the throttle and the board slows down, so you give it more throttle, and it's just back and forth, back and forth. It just wasn't that pleasant, so maybe that could be fixed with a software update, but I don't know. Since that was more of like a con, I might as well move on to the cons. The wheelbase on this thing, like I said, is really short. This thing doesn't even really look like a skateboard in my opinion. It's great that it has a kicktail, but if you have this tail because the truck is moved so far up the board, kind of defeats the whole purpose of it. Let me grab the Lou board and show you a comparison. Lou board 3.0, I'm gonna line up the front of the trucks here. As you can see, the back trucks on the Lou go way back out here to the back of the board. If I line up the actual nose of the deck, the KingKong board has about 3 inches on it in the tail region, but I would much prefer riding this over this just for the form factor. Now, the deck is really stiff, but it was surprisingly smooth in like really rocky situations. Riding on the bricks, I thought this thing would kind of shake to death, but everything seems solid. There's nothing rattling around like I found on the Lou board. The actual power going up that hill, I was going full throttle, and when you do that, the board rides a lot smoother, so I made it up the hill fine. The board, the wheels, everything just seemed to handle it pretty well, so that's a plus, I guess. The lights on this thing, obviously it's daytime, so I didn't really notice much, but I guess that's a good feature. I don't know. The trucks felt okay, it turns pretty well, but I mean, just the two main things that would make this board better are the drivetrain, the wheels, trucks, and everything on a different deck, something more skateboard-like, and then just fixing the whole connection, weird motor, throttle, acceleration curve, whatever the hell you want to call it. That really needs to be fixed before I can recommend this thing. The way this board sits at the price point, I would think that it's more directed towards like an entry-level rider. Someone who's been skateboarding for a while, 9 times out of 10 is probably not even going to take 2 looks at this thing and realize that they don't want it. But because this is sort of marketed towards like an entry-level electric skateboard, the price point's there and everything, but if you've never ridden an electric skateboard, I would not put someone on this. Just the short wheelbase, the choppy throttle and everything. Like I said, I've been riding skateboards for a while and it felt like my first time actually riding one of these. There's a bunch of different boards out there in this price point. I actually think there might be some on the way to my apartment right now. So while this is the first budget board that I have taken a look at, I think there might be some other options that might be more suitable for everyone. And I think I'll be able to give you my impressions and review of those in the next couple of weeks. So that's gonna be it for my thoughts, riding, and review of the KingKong board by iFasten. If you guys have any questions about it, let me know in the comments down below. I'll answer them as best as I can. I might be able to give you some recommendations on other things as well. So that is that. If you guys enjoy these electric skateboard videos, let me know by slapping a like on it. Like I said, I've got a lot more coming, so if you are new to the channel, also consider clicking subscribe because I make new videos every week. That's gonna be all for today, so as always, thank you guys for watching, and I'll talk to you in the next one.